Hi, my name is Keith Cooper from Northlight Images, and in this short video I'm going to look at the Canon G550. That's a 6-ink tank printer with dye-based inks. The 550, the 650 is exactly the same printer but with a scanner on top. It's also known as the 640, 620, 5, loads of different G numbers in different parts of the world. But this one here is a G550, the basic version with no scanner on it. I'm going to print a borderless print, and I'm going to print it on an interesting paper called Titanium Gloss. It's from a UK company called PermaJet. It has very fine reflective particles in the makeup of the paper, and it gives a very distinctive metallic look and suits some images very well. Now I'm just going to print this picture here. Now this is one that was taken by my wife Karen whilst we were on holiday in Northumberland. It's a great picture that I would happily print very large, but for one slight problem, well, from my point of view, one slight problem, it was shot on a phone. Now, Karen's tried direct printing from her iPhone. It's a 6S, so the camera's not great, and it prints perfectly well. The phone, she downloaded the Canon app, found the printer on the network, connected with it, and she picked it up, and there's a print that's come straight out. That's on a luster paper. That's straight from the phone, no adjustment, no anything. However, I've loaded the picture into Photoshop. It suffers from quite low resolution and a slight painterly look in the detail, which is typical what you get on many phone photos if you try and enlarge them very much. They look great on phones, they look great as prints that big, but much bigger, and you start to see problems with it. But anyway, I've loaded up a couple of sheets of this titanium gloss, and I've loaded them into this, and I'm using the photo paper other setting. Now the important bit about this is that I'm driving this from a Mac, and colour management is effectively broken on Macs when using this series of printers, because Canon have decided to use the Apple AirPrint driver. Now the Apple AirPrint driver means, well, it's why Karen was easily able to make a print straight from her phone. There are lots of other things. It's aimed at ease of use. However, that ease of use comes at, to me, what is an unacceptable cost. However, this is a small printer, much smaller than the ones I normally look at, and so we'll dispense with things like that, and I will try and get some good prints out of it, because actually you can. I've found that by making colour profiles, and I'll have all the ones I've made listed when I do the written review for this printer. I'll be doing a video as well, but the written review will be the sort of master one with all the information that I've found out about it. I've made some profiles which you can apply when printing from Photoshop and other applications on a Mac, and they massively improve print quality, particularly in black and white. Now I'll be coming back to black and white printing in another video looking at that, but to suffice to say, these profiles, I suspect, and I don't know because this information is not publicly available, I suspect won't work very well on Windows machines. Now, you may be able to apply them to the printer driver in the same way as is happening with the Mac here. They are not the best colour profiles I can make for the machine. They are limited by the software that's available for it. If I was to get a Canon Pro 200, Pro 300, larger printers, I can profile those properly. And I have done. I've got loads of videos and I've written stuff up about getting the best quality prints. But this is for how to get decent looking prints out of a cheap printer. And this is a relatively cheap printer. Anyway, here's the image. I'm going to go to Photoshop and I'm just going to go to print. Now I've set these settings up in advance rather than go through all the details, because it will vary by whatever version of Photoshop you're using. Have a look at some other videos I've done. Have a look at your basic printing with something like Affinity Photoshop. It's how you set things up. Now with this, I've expanded it. I've set a borderless size for this paper. Now, I've looked at this paper in more detail with some other printers, and it makes really good prints, especially with dye-based inks. Now, with the inks in this, these are not archival pictures. These are not going to last hundreds of years. But if you're just handing them around as gifts for the family and you don't expect them to last for years and years, nothing wrong with printing on a printer like this. So I've got here this image. Now, I've used Gigapixel AI to expand the image size, to increase its resolution. This does all kinds of fancy tricks and is a great way of taking small photos and printing bigger prints. Now, I've looked at this in detail on the Northlight website. There are lots of articles looking at it and reviews of it. But anyway, Gigapixel AI, get the right way around, is an excellent piece of software, and as I said, it shows where software for handling photos is going. One of the complaints I've heard against it is that it uses AI techniques to create plausible detail. That's not a problem. I'm making a print. Phone pictures like this lack fine detail, so this is one of those things worth experimenting with. You can process the image in Photoshop directly. There are all kinds of things you can do with them. But all it is I'm just trying to get a little bit more crispness and detail, or apparent detail, out of the print. Now, this is only a small print. I regard A4 as pretty small prints. If I was doing an A2 sized print, I would probably need an awful lot more work going into it. But I'll try that when I next get a larger printer here. But anyway, here we are. I've set it. The print settings are set. A4, the media setting is photo other. The printer here is set when I've loaded the paper to A4 photo other. I will set the size on the printer here. And I've created a preset it just says A4 photo other best borderless. I'm printing it at the best setting because I found that for this printer, although it's slower, it really does make a bit of a difference that you can see in pictures by using the best setting rather than the standard. It takes about 5 minutes rather than a couple of minutes to do a print, but it's worthwhile if you've got a picture that you think is good enough. So anyway, that's the settings there. So we've got that. I'm printing borderless. I've expanded the image slightly to make sure we don't get any borders appear on the paper. Nothing worse than printing a borderless print and getting a little fine white line along one edge. So there we go. But I'm going to, rather than set this to printer manager's color, which is the way that you're supposed to do it for the driver that's supplied with this, I'm going to put Photoshop manager's color. That's whatever application you're using for this. And I'm going to select the profile I've made. If I go down here, I find one for Titanium 300 photo other. Now, I made a profile using the glossy 2 setting of paper as well, and I found that the photo other gives a wider gamut. Remember, there is no proper color management. Now, I'm not double profiling, which is a fault that you sometimes get when setting things up, so a profile gets applied twice. This is using a profile on top of whatever's there to try and make it a bit better. So this is a bit different from the normal color management I'd expect to be doing, but I'm still making profiles and they still improve the look of the pictures. So select that, photo other. So we've got that now set at photo other, Photoshop manager's color, and all I have to do is print. It will tell me that the image is a bit too big for the page, but I'm printing borderless, so you have to have the image a little bit too big. So we'll just proceed. Now, this will take a little while because this image is huge. One of the downsides, and I'm running it on a laptop with limited memory, one of the downsides of using resampling like this is that your files can get big. I think this one is 800, 900 megabytes. That's quite big for an image file taken from a phone. Now, there is more detail of it, and I'll cut in just here a comparison between the two. Now, this is zoomed in on the screen, so it may not be that obvious, but I know from experience in the past that printing with an expanded size like this at a ludicrously high print resolution, I think the print resolution must be well over 1,000 pixels per inch on this. The driver will take care of that. I don't really worry about such things. It's going to print it, and we'll see what it comes out like. As I said, it's not terribly fast, printing at its highest quality level, but it is worth it. Now, the original image here, this is, as I say, taken straight out of the phone, printed using the phone app, Canon phone app. Prints perfectly well, but I can see that the colours are a bit adrift. There is a slight purple tinge to things. There's a few other bits and pieces. So I'm curious to see how my profiling and print changes things. Now, a quick look at this picture comes out. As it comes out, shows a better tonality in the sand. It looks more like sand, there's more of a golden look to it. Lost a slight tinge here, but I also noticed that in the process of scaling it, I probably scaled it a bit too much. So I have slightly cropped the image, rather more than I intended, which means that this one won't look like this one. Now, I'll do another one. And see what it looks like with that. It would seem that I did overcrop that one. Go through things twice before you actually press print would be what I would normally do. I'll leave this in because it is an easy thing to do when rescaling images. Yeah, we've chopped off rather too much there. So here it is, more properly scaled. I'd accidentally set it to print at a scaled size of 7% when it needs 5.5%. So we will just print that. Same settings. And off we go. And it will print that one. Quick look though does confirm that much more natural looking colours on that one. So here we have a print produced this time at the correct scaling. There we go, you can see the difference that getting the scaling wrong makes between the two. Once again, the colour is much better in the one I've just printed. The sand has a golden look to it that looks like sand as opposed to a slight purplish tinge from this. And I've noticed this, that in native printing with this, you often tend to get a slight magenta cast in images. It's very noticeable if you try and print black and white, and I found that printing black and white directly using the driver on this is just doesn't produce results which I find acceptable. I should add that I have very high standards for black and white printing, but it's not really good enough. Here with the printer doing its usual stuff it does after a few prints. What real difference can I make out in the prints? Well, with these, my semi-distance reading glasses in, not a lot, but one 50mm camera lens makes for a very good way of spotting detail. What I'm going to say is, if you get a lens like this and look at your prints, please don't be disappointed when you find they're all full of little coloured dots, because that's what makes them up. The Canon G series printers here does have a rather coarse looking resolution if you look at pictures very close. But I'm going to say the same thing I say for my big exhibition prints. Nobody who ever goes up to a print and looks at it from this distance, nobody ever buys one. So I really don't care what people, when I do my huge great prints, people go up to them, look like this, or get a lens out and look at detail on it. Well, if it's not good enough for them, tough, it's not aimed at them. I'm very much of the view that prints like this are meant to be viewed from a reasonable distance. And if you look at them too close and you can see detail that you don't like or artifacts in the printing, that's not necessarily a problem of the print. I'm going to say it's a problem of the person looking at them. And that attitude is not necessarily popular. I know some people like looking at detail in prints and getting magnifying glass out and looking at stuff. I don't know what it achieves. Technically, I find it of interest because it tells me some of how the printer's working. But what's the upshot of this? I've used one of my profiles on a nice metallic paper, and it makes a very nice print of Karen's photo. This one here is not bad, and in daylight looks fine, but in artificial light, this is halogen replacement bulbs, LED bulbs, it does have a slight colour cast. The other thing is that the printer driver has no problems taking images at ridiculously high pixels per inch, and that using software to increase the resolution of your pictures when they come from poor image sources such as an oldish phone is a great way of producing better looking pictures. Now, I have got some videos and looked at making prints from what I would say old or poor images. That if you're interested in that, have a look at that, and there's articles on the Northlight website. But anyway, that is making a print, borderless print, colour print, taking far more effort than is really needed. If I'd scaled it properly in the first place, all I'd need to do is select the profile, select the media settings, bang, print, and that's it, done. It is a nice printer. It is not a fine art printer in any way. If you want that, you're going to pay more. If you want something just to be able to produce nice looking holiday photos and photos you can stick on your office wall, then it's great. Also does well for greetings cards. I've looked at that elsewhere as well. But I will be doing a more detailed, comprehensive review looking at other aspects, including black and white, in due course. So I hope this has been of some interest, and thank you.